Hi, True Crime Grapevine fans. It's me, Patty Lee, here on the True Crime Grapevine. This case is case 3 in episode 44, but we're also going to put it up as a standalone crime bite because at the end, there's a special announcement I'm going to make. So, what's this case about? This is the case. Let me just show you. It is, yes, it is case 3. It is a case of a 33-year-old podcaster from Redmond, Washington. Redmond is a suburb of Seattle. She was unalived by a crazed fan turned stalker. His name was Ramin Khodakaramrezaei. I'm not going to say this right. Khodakaramrezaei. He was 38. I'm going to call him Ramin. And I'm going to call her Zohreh. Hopefully I'm getting these names right. I believe they're all Iranian descent. They spoke Farsi. Her podcast that she was affiliated with was targeted towards the audience of, I believe, Farsi-speaking immigrants who were interested in getting employment in the tech industry in the U.S. So you move to the U.S., you're interested in getting a tech job. Zohreh was a software engineer, and speaking about her expertise and I believe her experience, she wanted to help other immigrants and people of Iranian descent, sort of bridge the cultural gaps that they might be experiencing to get a job in the tech industry. And if you know anything about the tech industry, you know the West Coast is kind of where it's at, or at least one of the hot spots in the U.S. And so Zohreh and her husband, Mohammad, were doing very well, and she was part of this podcast, and that is how she met Ramin. Apparently, at first, she connected with him. She did her podcast, I believe, then they spoke. I think there was a group situation speaking on something. If you had an app called Clubhouse, during the pandemic, it was very big, and you could connect with people. And, especially during the pandemic, a lot of people were more willing to connect with people because we were not connecting with anybody in real life. And it seems like Zohreh was very kind and wanted to help. And so now Ramin was a truck driver. He was in Texas. He had been married previously and had a child. He was a little bit older than Zohreh, but not like, so he probably seemed at first harmless. He was a fan. He was of Iranian descent. He spoke Farsi. He was, at least appeared, interested in the tech community, and so she was being friendly. And he misunderstood what friendly meant. If you can see here on my little inset behind me, here's Redmond, Washington, and here's Texas. I think he was from Houston, which is right here. So, look at that big difference. So, how did he hook into her, and why was this a fatal attraction that ended up in like physical proximity? Ramin was a long haul trucker, so his job took him on long excursions, which also meant he was very hard to serve any sort of bench warrant protective order, because where was he at any given time? We can see here, if you're not familiar with the area, so Washington State, where Seattle is, and Redmond, is right on the border of Canada. I don't know, it's probably because of my dyslexia, but I always flip Oregon and Washington because Portland we hear a lot of Portland and Seattle, but they're in two different states. Portland is Oregon, south, closer to California, and Seattle, Redmond area, very far north in the United States. It's the Pacific Northwest, right next to Canada, British Columbia area. So that is where this took place. Now, Zohreh was married to Mohammad, and here's her obsessed stalker fan. The first picture is that of Ramin. Again, it started out, she had this podcast. He was a person interested ostentatiously in what she was talking about. They connected on Clubhouse. And then, and then he followed her on Instagram. As he was a fan. And then he did things like show up at a conference in Denver when she was there. And he had no reason to be there. He started corresponding with her 20 times at least, minimum. He would call her husband, and he called her over and over. One day he called her 82 times, according to the complaint that she had sworn out. So it started out like, at first she said she just got freaked out about the frequency of his messaging her on social media and the familiarity. The content was getting a little too familiar. She blocked him. She blocked his phone numbers. He would use fake accounts. He would use fake numbers to get around her blocks. He would continue. He found out where she lived. He showed up where she lived. He at one point recently waited, I think this was in December, waited until he saw her husband leave the house, and then he showed up with flowers physically, so she called the police. He would call and say, I'm staying in inns near your home. He parked on her street. So he was a legitimate stalker. He called her friends, her family, her husband, saying ridiculous, threatening things. He was delusional, as if they were in a relationship. Since this began, his ex-wife has come out. Now, they have a 7-year-old daughter, I believe, in Texas together. She has come out and said, well, no, he did tell me that they were really close friends, and when she shut him off in November, he, was crushed that their friendship was over and that they had seen each other in person and spoken in person. Now, we know that he went to her conference in person. We know that he went to her house without being asked in person. So this whole idea that they were friends seems to be in his mind. So what happened specifically? What was the crime that we're talking about? Well, so on March 10th, in the early morning hours, in this beautiful Redmond, Washington. So Redmond, Washington is in the suburb of Seattle, Washington. I actually got to stay in a hotel there when I went on a business trip with my husband. It is a beautiful area, very expensive to live. Anywhere around Seattle is very expensive. So there are online pictures of the interior of this house, and I must say, if you like, especially mid-century, it is beautiful. It is also very open. So if you had a stalker, not great for stalker people who are being stalked, because it looks like a fishbowl. And I believe we unfortunately have heard another story in a neighboring state of Idaho where a number of young college students were living in a house like a fishbowl. So, what can we learn from that is, if you can't put up curtains, because at night people can see in. So if you have a lot of windows, it is a good idea, whether you be stalked or not stalked, to put up something to obscure people from looking in. And if you have a stalker, you really want to make sure nobody can look in your house. I have no idea. It doesn't seem like that happened, but I don't know. Again, we're not blaming the victims, but we hopefully can learn from these incidents about what we can do to not be a victim. So as you can see, the house, it looks like it's a split. It looks like you walk in the basement, but it looks like there's also a hill. So maybe he entered into a second-story bedroom, the mother's bedroom, in the middle of the night. He attacked her mother, she lives with them. The mother was able to get away. He made it into the primary bedroom where the couple was sleeping. He immediately shot, I guess, the husband. We're not sure exactly what transpired between all of them, but he shot the husband, he shot Zohreh, and then he had a self-inflicted gun wound, and took care of this any further litigation and adjudication by taking himself out. So the mother, after she was attacked, had gotten out of the house, ran to a neighbor, had called 911. People arrived. They were able to pull out the husband, Mohammad, onto the front lawn where he expired right there. They went inside, and in that primary bedroom found Zohreh dead and her stalker right next to her. Went out with her, which is kind of sick, right? Kind of sick. Her complaint that she filed, and it was accepted. There was an order filed by the King County Sheriff's Office on March 3rd, a protective order, a bench warrant against this truck driver, Ramin, but they couldn't find him. I mean, it is horrific. And, what can we learn from it? I guess it's horrible to say you can't be nice to people, and it doesn't sound like she was inappropriately nice, and it's just when someone, she was offering, especially if you have a similar situation where someone's from your same country and you're trying to help them and you feel for them. Nice people get drawn into that, and then the other person overreads it. And psychologically, my background is in psychology. I am not sure what starts obsessions, and because I don't study abnormal psychology, but I am sure there's a lot written about that. It would be hard to know when you're being nice to somebody who has a problem versus when you're interacting with someone who could be of danger to you. She knew it was of danger by November of this year. I believe they said either 18 months or 8 months. It's unclear. But he was from Texas and she was from Seattle. And so I don't think she really understood how, besides it was annoyance at first, but when he showed up in Denver at the conference, that was a big shock and made her fearful. She had back surgery, I guess, in December, and was part of the complaint was that she could not sleep. She could not rest. She thought it was inhibiting her recovery from back surgery because her husband had to work out of town and she was in deadly fear of her life. And she wasn't wrong. So, again, what can we learn? I don't know. There was a professional woman I heard speak on stalking, and basically, and also that the sheriff of this area was like, well, it was just a piece of paper anyways. Like, even if he would have been served it, I don't know. That did not make me feel great about, like, the justice system. Like, well, what are you going to do? It's a piece of paper. And it's not always like arming yourself is going to help either. I don't know. Making sure your windows are unable, like making your house like a fortress does not sound like a great idea. But the woman said, seriously, don't depend on law enforcement if someone is actually threatening your life. She was like, you move, you change your name. Yeah, you move. I mean, not everybody can. But if someone's literally going to kill you, she was like saying, that's what you do. Like, you hide. You run, you hide. Kind of like, what did they say? Run, hide, fight? Like when there's a active shooter. Kind of like the same thing. You got to go underground. Is it fair? No, it's not fair. Should that be your responsibility? No, but do you want to be dead right? I don't know. That is very scary. And I think because there's another analogy of a toad being, they say, like frogs being slowly boiled. Like if it's little by little, you don't realize until the very last second that you're in danger. Kind of seems like that sort of situation. Okay, so here's the announcement at the end of case 3. I am going to start a book club. I actually am going to start a book club with a fiction book and a nonfiction book. Sometimes life, it is as strange as fiction, as we say. The Beneath the Devil's Bridge is by Lorith Ann White. You can get it at Amazon. You can get it on audio anywhere. You can go to your local library and pick it up. It was a big seller. And somebody told me about it. Why do I bring this up now? It is about a podcaster who is doing a serial podcast about a murder in her area. And it seems as if during the serial, so if you're not sure, a serial is just like that, a serial podcast. I'm sure you guys know what I'm talking about. I don't mean to be pedantic and didactic and talk to you like you're idiots, but it means it's in a series. So, and sometimes it's in a series as the crime is happening. There are a number of serial podcasts about the Delphi case, which I am talking about an update in this episode. So it is, this book is about a podcaster who is looking into and speaking about doing a serial podcast about this unsolved murder in her area. And I guess there's a lot of twists and turns. I didn't want to read too much about it online. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be reading a chapter or so a week and talking about this book. And I thought maybe you guys would like to do that. So those book club books will be a separate upload. I'm also, if you watch my upload this week, which will be a couple days later, on the update on the Lori Vallow trial that's going to be taking place April 3rd, I got a nonfiction book that was written about that case, and I'm going to try to zip through that and read that too. That'll be, so you're getting a little preview here about, I think it's called when something about the blood in the moon. I'm looking around for it. I don't see it real near me, but I'll show you in another upload. But anyways, so this, I thought it'd be fun to do a book club. I'm a nerd. I don't know if you can tell. I like my hobbies are true crime, trials, psychology. That was my profession, but I love anything like that. And as if you were around, you saw my murder mittens. I like to knit and read books. So, maybe I'll have a knitting project with the book club. If that interests you, look for those uploads. Please like this episode. Give it a thumbs up. Hit the notification bell if you'd like to know when I upload, especially about the book club. It'll be called the Partners in Crime. Patty's Partners in Crime Book Club of the True Crime Grapevine. Join up. I will be doing lots of books. I think you can learn, even through fiction, a lot. I'm also right now reading a book by the lady, her name is it Kathy Reich? She writes the Bones books. Temperance Brennan, if you know the TNT, I always watch it on TNT, you can watch it on Netflix, the Bones series, about an anthropologic ME. She's a forensic anthropologist. Anyways, those are written from books. They're kind of like Patricia Cronwell's books. Another forensic, another ME who ends up like being a detective. But anyways, they talk a lot about the forensic part of crimes. So I think you can learn a lot from fiction. I've heard a lot of great things, though, about this Beneath the Devil's Bridge. And because I'm a podcaster, I thought it would be cool to read. I heard really good things about it, and I put it at the end of this case because, unfortunately, it is a case of life imitating art, sort of, because I think somehow a murderer shows up in this book. If you know, please don't put that in the comments. Don't be a spoiler. But join in the book club. I think it's going to be fun. All right? Maybe at the end we'll do live when it comes to the discussion questions part. But there's some spoilers in it, so I didn't want to read too many. Like, there were no preview discussion questions. So I'm very excited about it because it involves all the things I love. It's fiction, it's a mystery, it's about a podcaster, and an unsolved crime, which also comes up in the next case I'll be talking about, which is some southeastern Ohio men whose remains are being found, and are they connected? That's the next case. So stick with us. Look for the uploads. Give me a thumbs up, please. I'd really appreciate it. Hit the subscribe button and the notification bell, and I will see you in the next case. Bye.